Alright guys, take a look at this bike. This is actually a Lowrider S 114 with a stage 2 cam. And he said it's super fast. Keep the front wheel on the ground. So this one should be interesting. I really like the slightly thicker tire than you'd see like in my Dyna, which is pretty nice. Let's see, we're in neutral. That's weird. I think that was just the neutral light. I don't think we're actually in neutral here. All right, we got it. So there's nothing, no stereo, no fairing. It has just a little wind deflector right here, which is kind of nice. So I want to adjust the mirrors just a little bit. That's an interesting stance to it. It's like the whole front end is lifted up and you have like a higher stance, which is kind of interesting. So this one definitely needs front and forward controls for me. I'm still way up here, and of course with this would be interesting. Mid controls on this one. All right, he looks like he's taking the Pan America. All right, here we go. I feel like I'm eating my knees on this one. My knees are like way up on this one. That's pretty funny. Has an interesting sound in the vibration, almost like the RPMs going up and down and up and down. Not quite as smooth at idle as some of them. All right, let's see. I gotta get used to these handlebars. Like they're closer together and more forward and up. And my knees are like way above the tank. It's just a weird stance on this one. Pretty smooth. Pretty smooth. The good thing about all these Harleys is all the blinkers are all the same. You don't really have to search for the blinkers, except on some of the higher end models where you have to kind of dodge the stereo controls. Wow. Stage 2 cam. I think that's where all that power and grunt is coming from on this one. I've never ridden a bike with a cam upgrade. They say it makes a significant difference in the sound and the performance. It's pretty interesting. Maybe that's what's kind of chugging a little bit, that cam. The friction zone is huge on this one. It's like a 3-inch friction zone. It's pretty wild. All right, so I think we're gonna go on the highway. All right, let's see. Brakes. Typical Harley brakes. Yeah, this just has a really awkward stance for me. That's kind of the weirdest thing. It's got some power. Let's see. You can definitely feel the road on this one. You can definitely feel the road. Not quite as stable, I'd say, as some of the other ones on the road. You can definitely feel a lot more of the road bumps. All right, so I want to catch up to these guys. I don't want to get too far behind. This is like open wind. No deflection at all on this one. So I actually counted the bikes. We're actually doing a drive from Harley Davidson. They have 17 bikes there that they brought in on an 18-wheeler. And I'm just going down through the line, down through all of them. All right, so I'm gonna close my visor because these bikes without the windscreens on the highway can be, I actually had to cut out a bunch of my voice on on one of them because the audio was so bad, and I don't realize it. And with the windscreen, it seems like my audio is okay with the visor cracked a little bit. So this one, I'd say going down the highway, you could definitely, it's not as stable as some of the other ones, mainly because you can feel a lot more of the road. I can feel all the little bumps in the road, which is kind of surprising. Like, it almost needs a better suspension, especially in the front end, to be as stable as some of the other ones. I think it really comes down to suspension. A lot of times it doesn't really cost that much just to change out the you can add like 4 cartridges and really smooth out the front end, so sometimes it's not a deal breaker if you have one. The seat seems pretty comfortable. It still seems like a really awkward position for me, like my knees are way above the tank, which is kind of ridiculous. Alright, so we're gonna turn off here. But this has so much power from that. I think it's from that Stage 2 cam that they put in. It's kind of interesting that they actually upgraded the cam on one of their demo bikes. I guess just to show you what a cam can do. Which I'm actually surprised that a cam can have so much of a difference. I'm assuming most of that's actually coming from the cam. Seems pretty good on the corners. The only thing is the suspension is kind of messing it up. So the tires seem really good around the corners, pretty planted. I would say if you actually upgraded the suspension. Let's see how this bump is here. Oh yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of like my 2007 Dyna Street Bob. You get on really bad streets with a bike like this, and it'll make your teeth shatter. Of course, if you're doing like wheelies or something like that, you'd probably be okay with a really firm suspension. It really depends what you're doing. Oh, I love the sound and the power on this one. Really nice. It feels like it's really powerful. I'd say maybe not quite as powerful as the Pan America, but probably a lot more peppier than I've actually seen on any other bike. Seems like it's really good in the corners, other than just kind of bouncing around. Seems like it's really well planted. The tires are kind of a good size for doing some corners. So you can kind of lean it over pretty good. The good thing about this is I'm not really worried about the floorboards. That's the other thing that kind of freaks me out on some of the bigger bikes, going around corners that quick. And let me tell you, these guys are pretty good on these corners. Got some pretty experienced riders going through these twisties with these demos. And we're trusting the road's pretty good, that there's not a lot of gravel. We've been taking pretty much the same route over and over. Wow, I can't even believe that. What that cam does to this bike. So even though my legs are really scrunched up and I'm kind of sitting on the seat at an awkward angle, mainly because I have mid controls. Let's see. All right, so this is kind of interesting. It seems like the clutch. Oh, I'm almost out of gas on this one. It seems like the shift lever has to move a lot further. So when you're actually shifting, if you know, I usually move the shift lever a smaller amount, and it shifts into gear. This one, it seems like you almost have to move it the length plus another half a length. It almost seems like you have to shift it a little bit further than your typical shifter to get it into gear, which is, it's almost like you have to get used to it. The back brakes, when you first press the brakes, there's like nothing at the beginning too. It's a little bit harder to get used to the back brakes, I'd say. Yeah, this bike, I think I'm just kind of sitting at it at an awkward angle too. That's what's kind of messing me up. These guys are good, man. Flying down this road. I guess we're testing the bikes out. So if it wasn't for that really stiff front suspension, I'd say this is pretty good around the corners. Pretty stable as far as being confident and well planted around the corners. So look at all those clouds coming in. They said if the roads get wet, we're done for the day. I think that's another reason we're going faster. We're trying to beat the rain, maybe do one more test drive. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to get rained out. So yeah, this bike, it's if it wasn't for the really high mid controls that's making me uncomfortable, I'd say the handlebars are at a really good spot. Probably the most comfortable handlebars that I've actually had. It almost seems like it has like handlebar risers to lift them up a little bit more on this one. I don't know if that's stock on this bike or if it's an aftermarket thing. Maybe they did the risers and then the cam. But it's interesting. I think that's from the cam that they added. When you give it gas, it has more of a, like a, it goes thump, 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 thump. It kind of has more of a thump to it. Almost like a jackhammer kind of a sound to it. I think at this point we're just trying to beat the rain. So yeah, once you start going faster, you don't feel quite as stable. I think that's mainly just from the front suspension being so stiff, which is pretty amazing, because usually with a thicker front tire like this, usually you have a more stable ride on the highway. Speaking of highway, I think we're going back on the highway. I-70. Maybe not. Yeah, but I am definitely scrunched on this bike. As I am on most bikes, I pretty much need forward controls in every single bike. And even some of the bikes that have forward controls, I need almost more further forward controls. You know, being 6'4" and 230 pounds, which is interesting. See, on this one, you can definitely feel that vibration on the road. Makes it feel a little bit unstable. I'm actually surprised how much it seems like, now that I've been riding a lot of bikes, it seems like a lot of their stability on the highway is coming from the front suspension. And the more forgiving the front suspension, it seems like the more stable on the highway. And the firmer the suspension, kind of jumps around more and doesn't seem as stable on the highway. And I'd say most of it is due to the size of the front tire. So with the skinnier front tire, usually it's a little bit more sketchy on the highway. A thicker front tire, the thicker the front tire, it seems like the more stable it is. And then, in addition to that, I think it comes down to the softness of the suspension on the front end. And then also, in addition to that, it seems like if you have a windscreen, you're a lot more comfortable on the highway. So yeah, it seems like it's really good around the corners. At slower speeds, medium speeds, it's really super stable. You can definitely feel a lot of road vibration. It's just that firmer suspension that gives you the appearance of being a little more unstable. These guys love the curves. I can tell. Yeah, the back brakes take a little bit getting used to. It seems like the back brakes take a little bit more action to get them to work. Like you press them about halfway and there's like almost nothing until you get to like the bottom of the brakes. It's kind of like the same on the shifter lever too. It seems like on the shifter lever it takes a little bit more too. Yeah, these guys are just having fun at this point. Gonna do a little few twisties before we get hit with that rain. The problem is I do not know this road at all, so I don't know what's coming up around the corner. It looks like these guys have been riding this road a few times. Pretty nice. Alright, so I'm starting to get used to this road. I think we've been on this one before. So I don't know, this bike with the forward controls, I think it would be pretty comfortable. What I would do is I'd actually do lower forward controls. I would change the shocks on the front. And this would be pretty awesome. Looks like it is your standard Harley Davidson mirrors. Blacked out. Bike's pretty blacked out. There's an interesting color to it. I can get used to these roads. This bike's pretty fun, actually. Probably one of the funnest bikes I've been on. These guys are good driving these curves. Definitely not a beginner. Definitely not a beginner course. It's interesting. They said for this drive, they were like, no learner permits. You have to be pretty good to keep up with these guys around those corners. Wow. This thing's got some power. It's interesting too, you can really feel the vibration of the engine pretty much through the whole bike. I think it's from that cam, kind of giving the engine a lot more vibration. Really nice looking bike. I love that it has pegs instead of floorboards too. Yeah, this is just not really configured for a 6-foot tall person. Alright, I think we're gonna go back on the highway. I think. Yes. Alright, let's get on it. Let's lift the front end. This thing's got some power. Oh yeah. And I'm almost out of gas. We're getting some strong crosswinds. Wow. Super strong. Like pull you off your seat. And the bike seems pretty stable, even in those strong crosswinds, which is pretty amazing. I think pretty much 100% of the instability at the highway speeds like this is from the front fork suspension. I think if you put in some Olins or some Legends up in the front, you can actually get this thing to be really smooth on the highway. You can actually feel just a little bit of vibration in the handlebars from the, I think it's from the suspension, from the road, because I let off the gas and I can still feel it coming up through the handlebars. Just a little bit, not too bad at all. But yeah, sometimes you get in that really strong wind like that that's really super gusty. If you're on a lighter bike, it can really throw you around. But this one seems pretty planted, other than just the vibration from the front end, from the suspension. I'm pretty sure it's just from the suspension and the forks. So as far as stability in the highway, I'd say probably number one in my book would probably be the Road King, believe it or not. I took the Road King out earlier today, and boy, that thing was super stable on the highway. And it didn't have a front fairing, so there was that too. Yeah, that rear brakes takes a little bit to get used to. Alright, so if I do the rear and the front, it really will stop really good. Oh yeah, you can definitely feel the bumps on that one. Yeah. So not too bad. Would I buy this bike? Yes, I would buy this bike. I would change a few things. I would probably buy this bike. I would change the exhaust, make it sound meaner. I would change the front suspension. I would change the foot pegs. Pretty stable. I think the tires are about the right size for nice, really strong cornering stability. I'm starting to think this might be our last ride. I think we're going to get rained out. Pretty sure. I think they're getting blown out. They're taking everything down because of the wind. I think demos are over. This is the last demo. Unfortunately. Let's see. So kind of the interesting thing about this bike too is it has a kickstand where it doesn't lean that much. Where it seems like it's almost too upright. It almost will like fall over. It's almost completely upright. This is pretty wild. Alright guys, there you have it. That is the Lowrider S 2021 from Harley Davidson with the Stage 2 cam. And this one actually had the 114, right? With a 114. Alright guys. Alright, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.